All right, picture this. Exams are officially over, and the gorgeous campus belle corners Jiang Zaiyou in the woods behind the school. Before he even knows what is happening, she just suddenly kisses him. Her sweet scent floods his senses in a split second, and then, choking back heavy tears, she cries out, "Jiang Zaiyou, I will gladly give you my heart and my whole future if you just help me. My life belongs to you." That seriously shook him up. Turns out, this crazy stunt happened because her mom was terribly sick, desperately needing 600,000 yuan for surgery. Now, that kind of cash was just half a month of pocket money for a lazy rich kid like him. He rejects her instantly, zero hesitation. Sure, the heart of an ice-cold genius beauty seems super rare, right? But sadly, Zayu literally does not believe in love. His parents only married for business, and they have faked their perfect marriage for 20 years. Did they even have hearts? Sure, but they gave them to other people on the side, so do not talk to him about giving away hearts. He is not buying it. Standing up tall, he walks straight toward her. Since he is way taller, he clearly sees her shaking eyelashes and the fresh tears on her cheeks. He reaches out his hand. She freezes up completely, squeezing her eyes shut out of pure fear. He just flicks her forehead. Bai Ningbing is stunned, opening her eyes widely to look at him in pure confusion. Pulling his hand back, he stares into her eyes, speaking super clearly. "Bai Ningbing, listen to me, right now. Do you want me to be a trashy guy who exploits your weakness, or a good guy who actually wants to save you?" She just stares at him, looking totally lost. Her brain is totally crashing right now, but Zayu stays patient, just letting her process it. Finally, she gets it. Her tight shoulders drop. Holding onto a tiny sliver of hope, she begs him in a super weak voice. "Please, I am begging you." He firmly shakes his head. "No, I am not a charity. Even though I have tons of cash, I will never waste it on useless things. 600,000 could buy dozens of really expensive Napoleon cats." The hope in her eyes instantly crashes into pure, heavy despair. Seeing her look like she might literally break, his tiny bit of dark, twisted fun completely fades away. He sighs. "However, I really do not want to be the bad guy or the hero today. Let us make a deal. I remember your grades are amazing. You are clearly a girl with huge potential, so I will lend you the cash as an investment. I can send the 600,000 right now." A crazy spark of total joy lights up in her eyes. "But I have one condition," he adds smoothly. "In 10 years, you have to pay me back 1 million yuan. The interest is fair, so it should not be too hard for you. Also, you have to get into the capital city's best university during your exams next month. That will prove you actually have the power to pay me back, making this crazy investment worth it." Looking exactly like she just found a lifeline, she nods fast, super scared that he might change his mind. Zayu drops his number and walks off, not even looking back at her face. Stepping out of the trees, the afternoon sun feels nice and warm on his skin. Between you and me, he literally does not care if she repays him. That money is nothing. Those strict terms are just a handy excuse. Otherwise, absolutely every stray dog would come running for cash. And honestly, considering his immense wealth, our guy just could not keep tossing money away, dropping 600,000 for some good karma while scoring a front row seat to watch the untouchable campus beauty fall from grace. Honestly, a pretty solid deal for him. After ringing his lawyer to arrange the time and place, he sent the contract straight to Bai Ningbing. Business handled. He casually walked toward his real destination. Passing by the club activity room, he just peeked right in. Through the glass window, his childhood friend Liu Ruyin was cracking up with a literal street thug. See, the Liu family and his clan were old money, wealthy allies with deep ties going back generations. Thanks to that history, Liu Ruyin and our MC were basically childhood sweethearts, which was fine, but the real wildcard here was her older sister, Liu Qingsu, an absolute business prodigy. Gorgeous, utterly ruthless, and honestly the best part was that she totally spoiled our MC. whenever she gave him some pocket money, we are talking millions of bucks, to a lazy rich kid, she was basically a walking bank. Plus, Liu Qingsu was getting engaged to his annoyingly perfect, elite older brother Jiang Lingshuan. She would be his official sister-in-law soon. Happy days. On the horizon, his comfortable slacker lifestyle as a young master was entirely secured. But lately, Liu Ruiyan had let her grades completely tank from the top to rock bottom, all because of this thug. That prompted Sister Kingsu to personally tell him to investigate. He knew he had to step up. He took her money, so he had to do the work. Before he even opened the door, a guy slammed right into him, sprinting out. The kid stumbled back, his eyes completely full of pure humiliation and rage. Our MC recognized him instantly, just a broke student Liu Ruiyan used to sponsor. Great grades, seemed like a really decent, honest guy. Look at him, you and I both know this is peak melodrama. He totally loves his sponsor, but she is obsessed with a street thug. He just shook his head, feeling completely amused by it all. This kid was way too naive. When rich kids throw money around, it is usually just a habit, cheap entertainment to flex their high status. It definitely does not mean they are actual saints. If this guy really wanted to be grateful, he should have worked hard, climbed the ranks, and paid her back with real, tangible benefits. That is just how the world works, begging for an emotional connection. You are just asking for suffering. He ignored the kid and pushed open the cracked door. Inside, Liu Ruiyan was still chatting with Tang Long, laughing away. The second she spotted him, her smile died, brows furrowed, eyes completely filled with pure exhaustion and annoyance. Jiang Zaiyou, what are you even doing here? Are you here to tell me to dump Brother Long? Let me tell you, do not waste your breath. You are just the useless young master of the Jiang family. You cannot even handle your own pathetic life. What right do you have managing mine? He was not even mad. Honestly, he found the whole thing hilarious. I am not managing you, just curious. How did a perfect, rule-following girl from the prestigious Liu family suddenly fall for a guy like this? Liu Ruiyan raised her voice, absolutely dripping with contempt. What do you know? Brother Long is not like you fake, hypocritical rich kids. He actually lives authentically. He lives free. She hugged Tang Long tight, her face showing an insanely fanatical admiration. Listen to this. This is what living means. Your normal lives are completely wasted, she sneers. Then watch this. She aims her weapon straight at Jiang Zaiyou. Especially you. You are terrible at studying. You are totally useless. Without that Jiang family name, what do you even actually have? A total loser. He simply nods, playing along perfectly with her act. Yeah, I get it. The whole rebellious youth phase, right? Thinking she actually convinced him. Super smug look crosses Liu Ruiyan's face. Tang Long puffs his chest out too, his face losing all that previous panic. But 1 second later, Jiang Zaiyou glares right down at Liu Ruiyan. Are you done dreaming? His freezing stare forces her to instinctively take a step backward. Tang Long groans on the floor after our guy brutally wrecked him. Staring in sheer panic, Jiang steps over to him. Did you not like being so authentic, being free? Go ahead, tell me how you feel. Are you free? Tang Long sweats bullets from the intense pain, completely unable to speak a word. Liu Ruiyan tries rushing over to grab him, but one deadly glare makes her quickly step back. You were acting so tough before, why so quiet now? He mocks. The punk trembles, too scared to even breathe. Jiang suddenly feels completely bored. He was just a cheap thug trying to score a rich heiress. He grabs the still shaking Liu Ruiyan and drags her straight out to the far western side of the city, a notorious slum area. He pulls her out, tossing her into a dirty alley. The horrible smell of urine on the brick walls, mixed with actual rotting garbage, hits their noses. Liu Ruiyan throws up instantly. He points toward the far end of the alley where some sketchy blonde thugs are loudly cursing at each other. He says coldly, look, this is that rebellious phase you love so much. Authentic enough, free enough. If you really love it, I will throw you right over there right now. Liu Ruiyan turns ghost white from panic. she grabs his arm. Crying silently, I was so wrong, Jiang Zaiyou. Let us go home, please, I am begging you, now get this. He catches a quick glimpse of someone familiar near the corner of his eye. It is Tang Long, taking full advantage of the distraction that scumbag is limping away, sneaking right out the other end of the alley. Jiang does not even bother chasing him. Absolute trash like that is not worth dirtying his hands. Liu Ruyan clearly sees him running away too. Her face completely drains, and her final illusion shatters completely as she watches the punk flee for his life. She stops crying and stands there totally hollowed out. He simply shoves her back into the car. She does not say another word during the entire drive. When they finally reach the Liu mansion, she opens the door herself, stumbling inside in a daze. Jiang does not get out. He simply tells the driver to head straight home. That night, he gets a text from Liu Qingsu. Zaiyou, thank you. He just replies back with a basic welcome sticker. Problem solved. For the next 2 days, the Liu household stays perfectly peaceful. Absolutely no one comes looking for trouble. He knows his future sister-in-law has already smoothed things over. Looks like his brutal move was the right play. His lazy life is safe. But by the very next day, his smile vanishes. Tang Long is dead, a fatal car crash. You and I both know his future sister-in-law is way more ruthless than anyone imagined. Suddenly, he finds this entire family totally terrifying. Every single one of them wears an elegant mask while brutally erasing any obstacle in their path. His elite older brother Jiang Lingshuan is exactly like that, and so is Liu Qingsu. He is the only outlier here. Just a lazy guy wanting to eat well and wait for death. He shivers, then bolts. Our main character knew right then he had to pack up and leave, far away from these absolute sociopaths. You and I both know he needed to survive to actually enjoy life. Without saying goodbye to anyone, he dragged his heavy suitcase downstairs early the very next morning. His mother sat right there in the living room, elegantly sipping her morning tea. She shot him an ice-cold glance and simply asked, super casually, where are you going? Changing where I sleep. She did not ask anything else. She just went right back to reading her financial magazine. Heaven only knows where his so-called father went. Seriously, this whole house felt like a freezer. Our guy dragged his luggage right out of that massive villa, never once looking back. He had this sick downtown penthouse he bought a while ago, and honestly, now was the absolute perfect time to use it. The place was incredibly huge and completely empty, so he drove to the biggest supermarket nearby. He badly needed groceries and snacks to stock up this totally bare place. Pushing his cart, he just blindly wandered the bright aisles like an absolute soulless zombie, tossing random junk inside. But right when he turned down the snack aisle, he completely froze. He spotted a young girl secretly shoving a huge loaf of bread up her sleeve. She looked a bit younger than him, tiny, wearing a badly faded school uniform, and wow, her stealing skills were just terribly clumsy. He did not say a single word. He just leaned back, crossed his arms, and watched her. Completely amused, she was really struggling here. Tiny sleeve, way too massive bread loaf. She kept trying, literally sweating from pure panic, but then she suddenly sensed someone watching her. She froze, slowly looked up, and bam, their eyes instantly locked. He stared right back in silence. Within 10 seconds, her face turned this bright, intense, burning red. Those huge eyes shifted from pure fear to utter panic and finally, just totally crushing shame. Her hand gripping that stolen bread visibly trembled. Violently, thud, the bread hit the floor. It was like all her strength just entirely drained right out of her. She slumped over, staring down, clearly praying the floor would just swallow her up completely. Major buzzkill. He walked right over, bent down, grabbed the bread and tossed it in his cart. Then he casually swept massive piles of cookies and candy straight off the shelves into his cart, letting it stack up into a literal mountain. He shoved the loaded cart right toward her. She stayed completely frozen, tense, waiting for the shouting. He just nudged her worn-out shoes with his foot and asked, no money to buy food. She trembled, giving this incredibly tiny Little nod, but then a second later, like she remembered something, she shook her head. Frantically, he was rapidly losing patience, nodding, then shaking your head. Are you acting out some silent play here? What is it? Just speak up. His voice honestly came out a bit too loud. She totally flinched, quickly looking up at him, her eyes red and welling heavily with tears. She opened her mouth to reply, but only these sad, broken, gasping sounds escaped her throat. Her small hands started gesturing wildly. He froze entirely. A heavy, crushing realization hit him hard. She was completely mute, seeing her panicking and entirely helpless. His annoyance vanished instantly. In that exact moment, massive guilt just hit him. He felt like a complete monster, the exact kind of guy who stays awake at night, just desperately wanting to punch himself in the face. He stayed totally quiet, just turned right around, grabbed a second cart and absolutely loaded it up with canned and dry food. Then, pushing both carts, he gently gestured for her to follow. She looked utterly unable to process what was even happening, and he did not even try to explain. He just grabbed her wrist and he dragged her right to the checkout. Bill paid. Our guy instantly took the heavy bags. She just followed behind him like a lost puppy, carrying only the lightest snack bags. Once all that was stuffed into his sleek sports car, he said, "Get in." She hesitated, but she finally opened that passenger door and slipped right inside. He asked for her address, taking his phone. Her little fingers tapped so awkwardly on the screen forever before finally dropping a pin. Turns out, it was this super old, broken down neighborhood up a steep hill. Honestly, a place he had never driven past in his entire life. He didn't say a word, just fired up the engine. Inside, it was dead silent the whole ride. She kept her head totally down, hands tightly gripping the bottom of her shirt. The car squeezed through these super narrow, broken alleys and finally stopped outside a crumbling, run-down apartment building. He completely killed the engine and helped grab those groceries. The hallway, pitch black, noisy, and it just reeked of mold and awful smells. She led him straight up to the third floor, opening a peeling wooden door. Boom! A crazy strong smell of herbal medicine instantly hit his face. The room was tiny, so small that the phrase extreme poverty perfectly described it in one glance. You and I are about to see real struggle right here. Right on that creaky wooden bed lay an incredibly thin, deeply wrinkled old woman. Her eyes shut tight, breathing super weak. The girl immediately dropped the groceries and rushed straight to the bed. She carefully tucked the worn blanket around the old woman, eyes full of panic. He completely understood the real situation right then and there. It wasn't about food money. She literally had zero cash left to pay for her grandmother's medical bills, stealing that bread, probably just because she was starving to her absolute limits, refusing to touch a single cent of the medicine money. Classic tragic backstory, and honestly, our main character was a total sucker for this stuff. After tending to her grandma, the girl walked right over and bowed incredibly deeply. Then she grabbed a battered old notebook off the table and frantically wrote something down in it. Her handwriting was perfectly neat. "Thank you. How much did all this cost? I will definitely pay you back someday." Just looking at those words, he actually found it pretty funny. Pay him back with what? More stolen bread. He didn't say a single word. He just whipped out his phone and dialed his private assistant, good old Wang. He told him to arrange something fast, a luxury private room over at Central City Hospital, send an ambulance down to the West City apartment district in exactly 15 minutes, address sent, and just deduct all expenses straight out of his account. This epic boss move took under a minute. The poor girl was completely stunned, jaw dropped, just staring at him entirely blankly. Forgetting to cry or write, you and I both know, things she would spend her entire life dreaming about could be solved with one single phone call. He literally nudged her bag with his foot. "Why are you spacing out? Just pack your stuff, we are going to the hospital," snapping right out of that shocked trance. She immediately started packing in an absolute panic, though honestly, there really wasn't much to even pack. A few faded clothes and this chipped little mug. The ambulance Arrived scary fast. Professional medics jumped right out and carefully moved the old patient onto the stretcher. The whole time, the girl just tightly gripped his shirt like she was completely terrified he might suddenly disappear, even though he felt a bit awkward about it. He never pushed her hand away. At the hospital, everything was fully arranged. You and I are watching peak wealth right now. Private VIP room, constant nursing, and top doctors instantly starting consultations. Our guy stood right outside that clean room, quietly observing the rushing nurses. Meanwhile, the young girl was standing right by the bed, absolutely terrified but so thankful. That heavy guilt in his chest about Tang Long passing away finally started fading. Honestly, just throwing money around actually buys peace of mind. Then a tiny tug on his sleeve. She held up a completely worn-out notebook. How could she repay him? He just leaned against the doorframe, looking down. Repayment. He told her to forget it. She panicked and started scribbling fast, her handwriting a total messy blur. Now she absolutely refused to take his money for nothing. He was a good person. Seeing those exact words, good person, a dark smirk crossed his face. In this insane world, was he seriously passing for a hero? Having massive wealth was the ultimate cheat code. He completely stopped her from writing more. First, he was no saint. Second, he absolutely hated getting headaches. Arguing about this was just bringing him extra trouble. Got it. She froze completely at his totally twisted logic, just staring at him in absolute silence. Seeing her looking like that, he let out a heavy sigh. Moving closer, he took the pen right from her trembling hands, writing something down really fast. Think of this as buying insurance in advance. Study like crazy and get into the absolute best university. If he ever lost everything and ended up begging on the streets, she just needed to remember to buy him a simple bowl of rice. Done. He shoved the beat-up notebook straight back into her hands. She quietly stared at his terrible handwriting for ages. When she finally looked up, those bright, clear eyes of hers totally shattered into heavy tears. Crying totally silently, massive drops splashed right down onto that worn-out paper. He felt pretty awkward and just looked away. Okay, seriously, enough crying. Her grandma still needed a ton of care. What was crying actually going to solve? He paused, thought for a second, then asked what school she was attending. He told old Wang to cover her entire tuition, plus, starting right this second, his guy would send 5,000 yuan monthly for all her living expenses until she finished university and got a real career. Do not refuse this, he warned. Just treat it like his insurance payment. After that mic drop, he didn't stay to watch any more tears. He barked some final orders at the doctors and walked out. Driving down the empty highway, he felt pretty ridiculous. Seriously, how in the world could the untouchable second master of the Jiang family ever hit absolute rock bottom? That was practically impossible, right? He was really just throwing serious cash around to buy a little cheap karma, because honestly, every single person in his elite circle was an absolute snake. He just wanted a solid backup plan so a lazy guy like him could enjoy pure luxury forever. But stick with me here, he actually did hit rock bottom. Fast forward 5 years. Just 5 years later, a massive scandal dropped after his fake golden boy brother got married. He was literally just sunbathing on a private island when the warning call dropped. He actually thought it was hilarious. Everything played out exactly as predicted. Deep down, that older brother of his was just a total coward who loved acting like the perfect, deeply devoted family man. He didn't even bother flying home to watch the pathetic family drama crash and burn. Because you and I know these elite marriages always recycle the exact same trashy drama. Let's break this down. His accounts locked up tight, then every single piece of property and every investment carrying his name vanished overnight. That was when our guy finally understood how badly he was doomed. Sprinting all the way back to his penthouse, he found it was game over. The massive Jiang group, completely swallowed by the Liu family. His own father took the fall for massive financial crimes. Hard evidence, too. He was Facing a lifetime in a cell, his older brother Jiang Lingshuan brutally tossed out. Onto the cold streets with absolutely nothing, even our slacker main character wasn't safe. The hidden cash stash he spent 20 long years hoarding was entirely erased from the map. Standing outside his own luxury penthouse, he just stared at two massive goons in suits blocking the front door. His mind was racing. Liu Qingsu. That complete absolute lunatic. If she wanted payback, fine. If she just crushed his clueless brother, he honestly wouldn't have cared at all. But sending his father to prison and bleeding the Jiang group completely dry. What was the actual point? The more he dwelled on it, the more his anger boiled. Was he just trapped in some female lead's epic revenge story? Just pathetic cannon fodder thrown out like absolute trash. Then click, the door opened. Inside, Liu Qingsu sat right on his favorite sofa, gently swirling a glass of wine. 5 whole years had passed. She looked way more stunning now, but totally ice cold. That boss energy was literally suffocating. Catching sight of him, she set her glass down and offered a soft smile. Zaiyou, you are back, he said, absolutely nothing, just glaring straight at her. She stood up, walking closer step by step, and reached out to caress his face. Don't look at me like that, I didn't want this either. He violently jerked his head away to dodge her. She didn't pull back, slowly adding, your brother is too stupid. I gave him a chance, but sadly he ruined it completely. She shook her head. Now you and I can see his face shift to pure dark amusement. So that is why you destroyed my whole family, he demanded. She paused, her voice dropping into a teasing tone. But it is different. Now he wronged me first. My payback is entirely justified, and right now I don't need a husband anymore. Stepping closer, she radiated this insanely intense, suffocating presence. Zaiyou, are you interested in staying by my side? I can take care of you just like before. Hearing that garbage, our guy laughed until tears practically fell. Wiping his eyes, he looked directly up at Liu Qingsu's absolutely perfect face. Hearing you say that, I am honestly wondering if you personally killed him yourself. The gentle smile on her face finally cracked, and even though it was crazy fast, he caught it completely. His very last shred of hope vanished into thin air. Just as expected, this woman was a complete psycho from the beginning, stopping at absolutely nothing to win, dropping his smile entirely. He stared blankly at her, then slowly raised his middle finger directly at her. The last trace of amusement vanished from her face, instantly replaced by sheer icy indifference. How ungrateful. She waved her hand dismissively, not giving him a single glance. Both bodyguards instantly stepped forward, one on each side, forcefully lifting him up like a helpless little chick, violently tossing him out of his own home. Standing in that completely empty hallway, he could not help but sneer. If he actually believed her demonic lies and stayed until she got bored, he knew very well he could never beat her. Even his sly dead got played. So how do you and I bounce back from this? How does a useless playboy even compete? Just dodging that psycho woman and staying alive was his only real goal. He whipped out his phone, frantically scrolling his contact list, looking for the guys who used to beg for brother. You dialing the first number. Hey wait, it is Jiang Zaiyou. Dead silence for 3 long seconds, then a hesitant voice replied, who, man, you have the wrong number. The line went totally dead. He just stood there frozen, letting out a bitter laugh before trying the second guy. Exact same garbage result. The third one, the fourth, either fake wrong numbers or they flat out ignored his calls entirely. Slumping against a freezing wall, he wiped those fake friends off his contact list one by one. Soon, only a handful of family numbers remained on the screen. You and I know exactly how this story goes. He sold everything valuable, barely scraping together 100,000 yuan. That pathetic cash would not even cover one night of drinking back in the day. Now, his whole net worth, wandering totally aimless down empty streets. Before he even knew it, his feet dragged him right back to his old fancy apartment building. He barked out a pathetic laugh. If push really came to shove, he figured he would hit a factory floor turning screws. keeping his daily expectations. Rock bottom, just praying for cheap food and a cot. After 20-odd years swimming in pure luxury, he guessed he had his fun, walking with his head down. Plotting his next sad move, bam, he bumped straight into someone soft. Super delicate, familiar perfume hit his nose. He immediately tried to apologize, but looking up, his tired gaze locked onto these massive, crystal-clear eyes. It was a girl with an insanely gentle face, kind of familiar, but he just could not place her at all. But oh, she definitely knew him. He could literally see pure, overwhelming joy and raw relief exploding from her eyes the absolute second she spotted him. She opened her mouth to speak, but then suddenly seemed to remember a crucial detail. Frantically, she dug right into her pockets, whipping out her phone and typing at lightning speed, flashing the screen. "Mr. Jiang, do you remember me at all?" He just blinked at the title. These days, nobody really called him Mr. Jiang anymore. He studied her gentle face. Little scattered fragments of past memories started snapping together in his brain. Boom, it finally hit him, and he was completely stunned. 5 whole years ago, that scared girl at the supermarket, the one caring for her sick grandma in that crumbling shack. Is it really you? Her face completely lit up, nodding like crazy. That pure happiness practically spilled right out of her. Honestly, he was just baffled now. Why are you even here? She rapidly typed out another message, shoving it his way. I saw the awful news about your rich family falling apart. I was so worried. I figured you might eventually wander back here to reminisce, so I waited right here since yesterday. His broken heart totally twisted, feeling incredibly heavy. Now watch this closely, because for 24 straight hours after he got thrown into the gutter, she stood outside this exact luxury apartment complex he was banned from, using the absolute dumbest method ever just to wait for a ghost of a chance. An insane heavy wave of pure emotion just crashed right through his chest, while his fake rich buddies were busy blocking his number. This sweet girl he barely remembered had stood out in the cold for a full day and night waiting for him. He opened his mouth, struggling to find words. She totally read the awkward silence. Her screen flashed brightly. Do you have nowhere left? Nowhere to go? Watch this. He stayed totally silent, agreeing. She pocketed her phone, doing something he completely did not expect. She reached right out and gently grabbed his sleeve. Her grip was incredibly weak. He could have easily pulled away, but that tiny tug, a quiet cry for help, felt like a heavy chain, making him totally unable to move. She led him straight toward the corner, like he was under a spell. He followed right behind her without fighting it. They stopped dead in front of a small bakery glowing with warm light. The sign above, Twilight Bakery, the place was locked up, but those display lights were still shining super bright. Then she unlocked the front door, turned right around, and gave him that look to step inside. It was not a massive shop, but it was spotless. The air carried this rich, sweet scent of butter and baked wheat. She pulled out a small laminated folder from right under the register. She slipped out an old, yellowed piece of paper, sliding it over to him. It was that exact insurance policy he wrote with his flashy handwriting 5 whole years ago, if by some wild chance he fell on hard times later and ended up begging on the street. She just had to give him a warm meal. She pointed straight at those words, then at him, then the shop. Her eyes were completely serious, like she was honoring some sacred, unbreakable blood pact. Finally, she turned around, grabbed a hot, fresh croissant straight from the oven, and handed it over. No pity here, zero sympathy, just this totally natural vibe, like it was simply her turn to help. He took the croissant and took a bite. Sure, it couldn't touch those crazy expensive meals he used to eat, but it brought this overwhelming sense of total peace. Are you still hiring? He asked. The girl completely froze, and then this massive, radiant smile bloomed right across her face as she nodded hard. That day, the chaotic, totally aimless first half of his life ended. The second half became permanently tied to this tiny bakery named Twilight. Now you and I are pivoting. His new boss was the exact same mute girl he thought he had lost absolutely forever. Her name, Su Wei. Using his old sponsorship money and her own savings, she opened this street bakery right after finishing college. The place definitely was not huge, but business was honestly pretty great. The local neighbors totally looked out for her, always dropping in for fresh bread and a chat. It is tough for a girl to be all alone. Glad she has some help now. Seeing you here gives us peace of mind, they would say. Wearing this cute little bear apron, he clumsily packed up the freshly baked toast, feeling absolutely zero emotion when he heard those kind words from them. Peace of mind? Are you kidding? How does a clueless guy who barely works inspire any peace of mind? Still, his showing up definitely took a huge, heavy burden off her shoulders, at the very least, when it came to kneading dough or carrying heavy sugar bags. This frail girl did not have to grit her teeth and suffer those brutal tasks completely alone. Every night after closing the shop, they headed upstairs to that small apartment, 4 completely bare walls. That is exactly what her previous place looked like. Here it was basically just a rough, temporary shelter, a simple dining table, 2 wooden chairs, 1 beat-up sofa, and a tiny room blocked off right from the main balcony area. That was his new bedroom, way smaller than his old villa bathroom, but you know what? He slept better than he had in 20+ years, totally stable, zero schemes, completely free of all that rich kid fake stuff. The air just held that super faint, sweet scent of wheat drifting up from downstairs, and honestly, he finally started learning how to be totally normal. So our guy finally figured out how to sweep the floor without causing a massive dust storm. He conquered the pressure cooker, too, making porridge without totally blowing up the kitchen. Huge win. Still, most of his attempts, absolute disasters, like when he completely mistook salt for sugar and cooked this horribly salty red bean soup. Su Wei took 1 tiny spoonful, her whole face scrunching right up, but get this, she did not even spit it out. She just quietly chugged a huge glass of water. Then, she wrote in her notebook, "The flavor is incredibly unique. Maybe less sugar next time," looking at her completely deadpan face. He was annoyed, sure, but mostly just amused. He grabbed the bowl, tossing it into the trash. From that day on, he actually started learning sign language, bought a whole stack of textbooks. Every single night after she fell asleep, he stayed cooped up in his tiny partitioned room, staring at his phone screen, practicing those hand motions over and over again, mastering the simplest hello and thank you, all the way up to you worked hard today, and good night. When he finally used those clunky gestures to say good morning for the very first time, Su Wei was completely stunned. Then her usually calm eyes just lit up like a star. Insanely bright, she immediately raised her hands, flashed a smile, and earnestly signed back to him. Right then, our guy realized that in his 20+ years of living on this earth, he had never done anything as genuinely worthwhile as this. Days passed, things gradually started getting better. He evolved from a total rookie who could not even operate an oven into a guy who expertly whipped cream, a real baker's assistant who could flawlessly pipe sweet decorations. The shop's business totally boomed. They even managed to rent out the adjacent storefront for a major expansion. His bank account slowly began stacking up a pretty solid sum, enough for him to build up savings and actually move out to rent his own place. He wanted to bring this up with Su Wei multiple times, but the words always died right on his lips. Move out to where exactly? What would he even eat? Where is the fun in being totally alone? Besides, running this place is not easy for her either. He could help, right? Finding a few random excuses in his head, he just shamelessly kept living right there. Su Wei never brought it up either. She basically accepted his presence as an absolute given. Now, Jiang Zaiyou never believed in love. His father and Jiang Lingxuan were the absolute best negative examples, but the pure peace he felt right by Su Wei's side was becoming wildly addictive. He shook his head, clearing out those messy, random thoughts. It was almost noon. Time to go prepare lunch for her, but you and I know this peace never lasts forever. He removed his apron and was about to head upstairs when a shockingly familiar figure pushed right open the shop door. The woman walking in wore a perfectly tailored suit, rocking some absolutely flawless and exquisite makeup. Her hair was tied up flawlessly, not a single stray strand in sight. Her entire presence just screamed successful corporate elite. Yep, it was his ex-girlfriend, Bai Ningbing. 5 whole years had passed. The humility and pure destitution born from her past poverty had been completely washed away. She was definitely no longer that helpless girl in the faded school uniform. The icy campus belle who had desperately begged him back then, totally gone. The current Bai Ningbing was sophisticated and totally flawless. Standing right behind her was a young guy, neatly dressed in a sharp suit and leather shoes, looking exactly like a fresh new college graduate. The look he shot our main character was full of pure, undisguised contempt, probably just her male assistant. Bai Ningbing's cold gaze lingered for a split second on the bare apron he was holding, her brows furrowed almost imperceptibly, but she incredibly quickly recovered. Her perfectly measured smile. Jiang Zaiyou, long time no see, he just nodded in greeting, his hands never stopping as he untied the apron. We are about to see exactly what she wants. All right, let us jump straight into the drama. She finally pulled a check from her bag and slid it right toward our guy. 1 million yuan. She knew they still had years before that 10-year deadline hit, but she had the cash today. Time to pay him back early. Zaiyou glanced at that massive number, grabbed the check and stuffed it straight into his pocket. A simple thank you. He definitely earned this payout, even if he honestly never expected to see it again. Watching him pocket the cash so fast, that male assistant behind her looked completely disgusted. Bai Ningbing quickly pasted on her polite expression. Her eyes scanned their tiny bakery before finally locking dead onto his face. Our MC knew that exact look way too well. Pure, arrogant, and just completely fake pity. Zaiyou, she started, I heard all about your family situation. If you still need a decent place to work, you can always join my company. My husband and I just launched our brand new business and we are hiring. Honestly, her fake saint act made his stomach totally turn. Their deal back in the day was purely a business move. She paid the debt. They were officially totally even now. Yet here she stood, acting all superior. Was she really trying to make the guy who funded her into her own personal charity case? Zaiyou glared at the assistant beside her, his eyes going completely cold, and then it clicked. She loved the sick thrill of playing savior, just like he enjoyed watching her struggle desperately back then. Now, she was literally feeding on his downfall, hiding it all behind a sickeningly sweet, caring mask. He shut her down instantly. No thanks, I am doing just fine here. Bai Ningbing dropped her fake smile. Zaiyou, do not be stubborn. I know what kind of lifestyle you used to live. He cut her off immediately, sounding completely annoyed. He said, no need, and that finally shut her up. A quick flash of pure anger crossed her pretty face. Fine, if you are that sure, I will not force you. The exact second she turned around, that male assistant right behind her rushed right up, looking way too eager, reaching out to gently hold her arm. Bai Ningbing leaned into him and flashed a secret little smile that only the two of them understood. Now watch this move. Zaiyou played it absolutely cool. Grabbed his phone and quietly snapped a crystal clear photo of the pair. The angle was absolutely perfect. In the shot, that assistant's hand was basically glued to her waist, and that flirty smile, definitely not meant for some standard everyday office worker. He just casually waved his phone in the air. Take care, I will not see you out. After they left, it took him barely 2 minutes to find her husband's public email online and hit send on that sneaky anonymous photo. With the trap officially set, he wiped the photo and cleared his outbox, feeling so much better, enjoying a nice, quiet lunch with Su Wei. His mood was completely relaxed now, leaning back against the cash register. Our guy started plotting how to spend that 1 million yuan. All those zeros were so sharp they practically blinded him. Honestly, how many years had it been since he held this much cash? At the very least, their daily grind would not be a struggle anymore. And then there was that new dream house Su Wei always wanted. The more he thought about the future, the bigger he smiled. who knew 1 million yuan could be so useful, but get this, the shop chime suddenly rang out. Ding, a sweet voice completely. Faking innocence totally broke his focus. Zaiyou. He spun around and immediately spotted Liu Ruyan. Wow, every single ghost from his past was showing up today. If he remembered her story right, her doomed husband, Chen Wang, had already been dead for barely 2 years. What do you want? Zaiyou leaned back, his face a total blank. She bit her lip, fake tears shining in her eyes. Honestly, that pathetic puppy look almost made him physically sick. Her voice dripped with fake sadness. I just wanted to see you. Second. Miss Liu, what wild act is she pulling today? He nearly laughed out loud. Her eyes went red instantly, acting like the ultimate victim here. Zaiyou, I know I was stupid before. I made terrible mistakes. I always thought that what I wanted was some epic, crazy romance. But right now, I finally realize all I actually need is a quiet home. She sounded so sincere, her eyes full of total devotion. She looked up, staring right at him with a lifetime's worth of absolute fake feelings and old memories. Jiang Zaiyou, let's just start over, okay? I know your situation right now. My sister went way too far, but it's fine. I can take care of you. Her tone dripped with sickening pity and gross charity. Oh, the classic redemption act. But wait, you and I need to pause. Since when did these two ever even date? Zaiyou fought back a massive urge to roll his eyes hard. Memories flashed back a few years. Remember that huge, emotional wedding between her and that poor student Chen Wang. At the ceremony, she literally cried, calling him the absolute light of her life, her ultimate happiness. Our guy stood right there in the crowd, watching that poor idiot get completely blinded by love. He had just one single thought: this dude is finished. And yeah, less than 2 years into their marriage, Liu Ruyan got bored fast. When the spark died and reality hit hard, the absolute grind of daily life, she tapped out. Then some smooth-talking pretty boy showed up right on cue. Luckily, her student husband wasn't totally useless after all. He gathered hard evidence against Liu Ruyan. He wanted actual justice, but then, tragically, he died. I mean, come on, who actually believes a coincidence like that? Zaiyou was completely sure his sister-in-law, Liu Qingsu, pulled the strings. Snapping back from his flashback, he stared at Liu Ruyan. She was still acting her little heart out. The smirk on Zaiyou's face just kept growing. Liu Ruyan, do you think all guys are just complete idiots? Her face instantly froze in panic. Your husband's funeral was huge, he added smoothly. Saw the news myself. You cried so hard, making the whole crowd weep, and everybody at home totally grieve. Huge pity. If only I hadn't been standing right at a hotel entrance that exact night, watching someone who looked exactly like you walk into an elevator, arm in arm with some handsome young guy. That would have been great. Liu Ruyan's face went completely ghost white. Oh yeah, almost forgot. That handsome dude. Guess his luck ran out pretty fast before he jumped off a building too. Liu Ruyan, aren't you tired yet? Zaiyou took one step forward, staring sharply right into her shaking eyes. Listen up, wearing this mask and acting fake every single day, doesn't it make you absolutely sick? Backed into a corner by his ruthless words, she slammed into the doorframe, shaking like a leaf in the cold wind. You are talking nonsense, she shot back weakly, her voice breathless, sounding like it was blown away by wind. He didn't waste any more time on her. He definitely wasn't worried about her getting revenge. A woman so totally obsessed with her fake saint persona would never actually let herself lose control or start a fight out of pure anger. Her perfect public image mattered way more than her own life. She had worn this mask for so long it was permanently stuck. She couldn't take it off even if she tried. Get out, like hearing a royal. So she stumbled out, her retreating figure absolutely, incredibly pathetic. The shop finally returned to total peace. Our MC let out a massive sigh, feeling like he had purged 5 whole years of pure toxic bad luck. Soon, soft footsteps echoed from the stairs. Su Wei walked down, carrying a bowl of freshly made sweet soup. She stepped up, handing him the bowl, her gentle eyes silently asking what just happened, he simply shook his head, gesturing that it was nothing. Su Wei sighed, her face full of worry. But you look unhappy, she signed. Meeting her clear eyes, he just smiled. He busted out sign language he hadn't used in forever, looking a bit clumsy. I'm totally fine, he signed. She got it, and a sweet smile bloomed on her face. Sunlight spilling from the window cast this warm, golden glow over them both. Since that very day, he stopped caring about that toxic circle entirely. He cut off all contact completely. Now, you and I get to watch him live a beautiful life with Su Wei, running this quiet little shop peacefully, day by day. Every single morning at 5, he would wake up 30 minutes earlier, head downstairs, and perfectly prepare the first batch of dough. By the time she groggily wandered downstairs, the entire kitchen would already be packed with that incredible baking smell and the hot water freshly boiled. She'd always sign good morning to him first and then skillfully tie her apron, diving right into prepping the day's desserts. They rarely spoke, but their kitchen coordination became absolutely seamless. Sometimes when she was busy and sweating, he'd hand her a glass of ice-cold water. Taking the glass, her delicate fingers would occasionally brush right against the back of his hand, so cool and soft. He started noticing all her little habits. She also stopped timidly trying to guess his thoughts. The days passed beautifully. By day, they ran the shop together. By night, she'd teach him how to craft more complex desserts. Sometimes they'd communicate flawlessly for an entire evening, completely without using pen or paper. This deep synergy made him feel incredibly secure. He started seriously considering a massive question. He wanted to marry her. He didn't believe in true love before, but he realized some people are literally just meant to be together from birth. He just wanted to stay right by her side like this forever. Now watch this. 3 months later, he finally popped the question. It was her birthday. He had secretly set up a beautiful little surprise right inside the shop. When she came downstairs that evening, the entire place was glowing with candles. She stood completely frozen at the bottom of the stairs, covering her mouth with her trembling hands. He walked up, dropped down on one knee, pulled out a ring, and said, I don't know how to whisper sweet nothings, and I don't buy eternal oaths, but I want to run this shop with you forever, until our hair turns gray. Will you agree? She just cried. Tears fell like broken pearls, dropping one by one to the floor. She nodded vigorously, then offered her trembling hand for him to slip the ring on. The fit was slightly loose since her fingers were so thin, but she curled her hand into a tight fist to keep it from slipping off. He hugged her, taking in the faint, sweet scent of her hair. In that exact moment, he realized that his entire 20-something years of life had been pure preparation just for meeting her. Their wedding was beautifully simple, definitely not some massive event. They only invited neighbors and a few old classmates he actually kept in touch with, a super cozy crowd. He didn't care about making it flashy. He just wanted to give her the perfect, proper wedding. All right, you and I see it coming. Pre-wedding day, Zaiyou hits the barbershop, snagging an incredibly crisp suit. They even chose her bridal gown as a team, and when Su Wei finally wears it, pure, radiant perfection, pacing outside that dressing room, catching her reflection, the guy is utterly speechless. Was this literal angel of a woman actually becoming his wife? Fast forward, ceremony day drops flawlessly. Su Wei's grandma heals up just enough to attend in her wheelchair. The sweet old lady clutches Zaiyou's hand, whispering through a trembling voice, thank you for looking after my Zaiyou. He goes beet red. Truthfully, she was the one saving him. During the ring swap, Su Wei is practically trembling. He softly grips her fingers, whispering right against her ear, don't panic, we are just playing the part today. She lets out a soft snort, giggling. Panic completely vanished. Mr. Jiang Zaiyou, do you accept Miss Su Wei as your wedded wife, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, to fiercely love and guard her? I do, Miss Su Wei. Do you accept Mr. Jiang Zaiyou as your wedded husband, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, to utterly love and honor him? Su Wei is mute, but She nods vigorously, then, flashing beautiful sign language, she gestures, I do. Efficient completely stalls out, totally lost. Zaiyou just beams warmly and translates for the crowd. She says yes. Massive applause instantly shakes the entire venue. Time for the kiss. She turns impossibly shy, turning bright red. He leans in, gently, pressing against her lips, so fragile, incredibly gentle, like she might shatter completely. Then he whispers close, Mrs. Jiang, please watch over me from this day forward. She laughs right into his chest, shoulders trembling with pure bliss. His former classmates step up one by one, clinking glasses and shouting massive cheers. An old college roommate he was. Tight with speaks out, Zaiyou, you totally changed man, you always used to be so cold and absolutely detached. Now you actually seem human. Zaiyou just glances at Su Wei, happily chatting with grandma, and gives a warm smile. Probably because I finally found someone genuinely worth protecting. After the massive ceremony, they head upstairs. Listen, we live for wholesome moments like this. Everything looks identical, just with some extra fresh blooms and massive stacks of wedding gifts. Su Wei ditches that gorgeous dress for super comfy pajamas, hitting the kitchen to whip up a quick midnight snack. For her new husband, he leans against the doorframe, watching her silhouette, just feeling insanely content. This right here, the exact peaceful life he craved forever. Two people sharing simple, quiet moments together. She carries the food over, catching him completely spacing out. She waves a hand right across his line of sight. What are you daydreaming about? Just thinking about you. She flushes deep red again, delivering a playful little smack. Then she scribbles quickly into her notepad. Jiang Zaiyou, we are officially married now. Do you regret this? Do you regret it? He shakes his head instantly. Zero regrets. What about you? I definitely don't regret a thing. I just feel like this is wildly unreal, like a dream. He reaches out and softly pinches her cheek. Did that hurt? She rubs her face, jokingly glaring at him. Then writes down, this is definitely no dream because I love you. When she writes those three heavy words, her fingers actually shake under that dim apartment lighting. Her eyelashes flutter exactly like wet butterfly wings caught in the rain. He stares at the page, his heart taking an absolute, heavy blow. This was not the frantic pulse of some schoolyard crush confessing love in the hallway, nor the cheap thrill of flexing wealth. Like it was nothing. Instead, it was this deep, echoing ache right in his chest, joined by an he finally felt completely safe, slowly pulling the pen right from her fingers. He snapped the notebook shut with a fake frown. Mrs. Jiang, writing. This late, are you trying to keep me up all night? Blushing hard, she waved her hands in panic, awkwardly signing, it's true. He sighed softly, pulling her close into a tight hug, resting his chin on her head. Yeah, I know. She totally melted into his embrace, her breath warm against his neck. Perfect peace. Right here, you and I see him figure it out. All that Jiang family money. His dangerous rivals, completely useless. The girl he held right now was worth way more than his whole crazy life put together. But fate, that cruel joke always waits for the absolute best moment to wreck your life. Those days after the wedding felt like fresh bread out the oven, totally warm, completely perfect. They woke up at 4 in the morning to start kneading dough. By 6, that first batch of hot croissants came out, making the whole shop smell incredible. Su Wei even showed him how to pipe frosting. His big clumsy hands totally wrecked the cream every time, but she never got mad. Instead, she just held his hands, guiding him slow and steady. Later in the afternoon, when things got quiet, she'd just rest her head on the counter for a quick nap. The afternoon sun shined right through the front glass, lighting up her sweet face. He would just watch her sleep, absolutely spellbound. How could anyone be this pure? It was honestly like the ugly world had never touched her at all. But dirt always finds a clean spot to ruin. Now watch this part. Right as they were about to lock up, drunk thugs shattered the front glass. Leading this absolute garbage crew was this local street rat, Brother Kiang, the exact same guy who tried collecting gang money before our MC literally swept him out, smelling like cheap booze. The thug booted a potted plant across the floor, screaming, "Get that little mute. Freak out here right now," Su Wei, counting stock in back, jumped at. The crash, she looked over in terror. He shoved her safely behind him and grabbed a heavy wooden rolling pin off the counter. Brother Qiang sneered, showing off his rotting yellow teeth. "Well, look here, does the old Jiang family heir actually think he is tough now? Word is you snagged a pretty little wife." Me and the boys came for a toast. The thugs behind him laughed. Like hyenas staring at Su Wei with absolutely zero respect, our hero gripped that rolling pin so hard his knuckles turned white. Playing the big hero, the scumbag took a step closer, blowing his absolute garbage breath right into his face. "You want to keep this bakery in one piece." Suddenly, Su Wei rushed out from behind him, holding some freshly baked treats. She put on a brave smile and signed at them, offering up the food. His heart just completely shattered into pieces. This innocent, sweet girl actually thought that a little kindness could fix real evil. Brother Qiang smacked the box. The cookies scattered all over the floor. "Who the hell wants your trash food?" He lunged forward to grab Su Wei's wrist. Our MC lost his mind, swinging the rolling pin right at the bastard's head. Everything went crazy. He took endless punches and savage kicks to the ribs. All that mattered was shielding Su Wei, trapped in the corner by the till. Police sirens finally screamed down the street. The gang scattered like roaches. Shaking, Su Wei reached out to wipe the blood right from his badly beaten lip. Massive tears streamed down her cheeks, but she could not make a sound. He wiped the dirt off his face, smiling softly. "Hey, what are you crying for? That guy is still breathing." She sobbed hard, burying herself deep against his chest. Just like a terrified animal, that whole night she clung tight to his arm. Every little movement jolted her awake. He stared down at the heavy dark circles under her eyes. A deep, suffocating panic hit him hard. What if he arrived late? What if he failed to save her? By morning, he hit the market, grabbing a heavy steel pipe. He stashed it right beneath the cash register. Su Wei noticed, frantically shaking her head. He tapped the metal, sighing heavily. "Only for defense. Trust me, it is better. If we never actually need to use this thing." She looked down, scribbling fast in her notebook. "I am terrified you will get hurt. I am so scared of you bleeding." He only smiled. Gently, he messed up her hair. "Su Wei, you are literally all I have left." She stared up at him with tears in her eyes, finally giving a small nod. "But you and I know peace never lasts." Liu Ruyan returned, haunting them like an absolute nightmare. This time, however, she refused to step foot inside. Instead, she parked her flashy red sports car right at the curb. Wearing massive sunglasses covering her face, she waved him over. Our guy just kept kneading dough and completely ignored her. So she stepped out, leaned against her car door, and laughed out loud. "Jiang Zaiyou, does your little wife know exactly how you helped Bai Ningbing back then?" Her tone was absolute poison. His hand slipped. A massive bag of flour crashed directly to the floor, kicking up a huge cloud of white dust. Hearing the sudden crash, Su Wei rushed right out. From the back room, staring in pure confusion, Liu Ruyan slowly pulled off her fancy sunglasses. Her eyes swept over Su Wei with raw, undisguised pity. "It is honestly pathetic being with a guy like him, a total loser who could not even afford a proper wedding." He clenched his fists tight, veins on his forehead visibly throbbing. "Liu Ruyan, shut your mouth right now." "What, getting scared, when the campus beauty literally begged you? Back then, did you not enjoy the thrill of handing out charity? Why pretend to be so fiercely devoted now?" Su Wei could not fully grasp the venomous words, but she absolutely felt the hostile tension. She gently tugged his shirt, her eyes totally full of genuine worry. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed his boiling rage, turned around, and signed to Su Wei that everything was fine. "Go wait inside first." Su Wei hesitated, completely frozen. Suddenly, Liu Ruyan tapped play on a voice recording from her phone. It was Bai Ningbing, her incredibly soft voice from the campus woods years ago. "I am willing to give you my actual heart, my whole future, if you just agree to this one thing." Then his own voice answered, "I am no philanthropist. Su Wei's face instantly. Drained of all color, she looked at him, then at Liu Ruyan, trembling lips but zero sound escaped. Liu Ruyan just smirked in sick satisfaction, tucking her shiny phone away. Little sister, did you honestly think he was some kind of saint, helping Bai Ningbing? Was just his twisted way of enjoying someone else suffering. Helping you was probably just some fleeting whim. You are talking absolute trash, he completely snapped, losing all control, and lunged right for her phone. Liu Ruyan shrieked, instantly ducking into her fancy car and locked those doors tight. The red sports car sped away, leaving only Su Wei and him inside a thick cloud of dust. She kept her head down, her fragile shoulders visibly shaking. He desperately wanted to comfort her, but she instinctively took one step backward, and that step back, stick with me here, because that felt like a literal knife to his heart, closing the shop. The atmosphere up in their attic was utterly suffocating. Su Wei turned her back to him. She just made the bed, refusing to even look his way. He grabbed her shoulders and forced her around to face him. Do you actually believe her? Su Wei bit her lip, heavy tears welling. Tears welled up in her eyes. She scribbled fast in her notebook. Was what she said true? Yes. But also no. He wiped his face, laying everything on the table. How he completely rejected Bai Ningbing, the contract. He confessed everything. You and I need to brace ourselves because this gets heavy. Right to the end, he admitted to Su Wei he was no saint, but toward her, he never once saw her as just some charity case. She stayed so completely silent, he honestly feared she might never look at him again. Finally, she raised her hands, very slowly, signing, I am scared. Scared of what? Scared that one day he might just find her boring and throw her away. Her fingers shook violently. She had absolutely nothing left. Only him. His heart just shattered. He pulled her tight into his arms. You absolute idiot. He was the one who only had her. That night, they slept holding each other tight. Two wounded animals keeping each other safe, but Liu Ruyan and her toxic words. They left a massive thorn in Su Wei's heart. She grew overly sensitive, if he was even 10 minutes late. She paced around with anxiety. If any random female customer talked to him for far too long, she just quietly walked away. He noticed it all, but had zero clue how to actually fix things, until one late night he woke up, the bed beside him totally empty. Su Wei was curled up tight on the balcony, crying in absolute silence. Under the cold moonlight, he walked over, gently hugging her from behind. Her tiny frame went stiff, then finally relaxed, burying her face right into his chest. Oh, Su Wei. He decided to tell her a story, spilling everything about his parents, his brother, and Liu Qingsu, the ugly rot hiding beneath that perfect family mask. He honestly never believed in genuine emotion before. He thought love was just a cold business transaction, but she was totally different. He gently wiped her tears away. She made him feel that surviving in this messed up world still offered real human connection. She looked up, under that moonlight, her eyes looked like dark pearls shining in crystal water. She slowly reached up, gently tracing the line of his eyebrows, his heavy eyes, the bridge of his nose stopping right at his lips. Then she leaned in, leaving a soft, delicate kiss on his mouth. It was entirely pure, totally free of lust, like the first snow melting right in your palm. He froze in pure shock, then kissed her back. Within that single kiss, the tension quietly vanished. That toxic thorn Liu Ruyan planted was pulled out for good. Life went back to peaceful, but danger always hides in the shadows. One afternoon, an uninvited guest walked right into their small shop, Liu Qingsu. 5 long years later, she looked even more arrogant, rocking a perfect, custom-tailored suit, looking totally out of place in this humble bakery. And get this, she brought 0 bodyguards. She walked in totally alone. When her freezing gaze hit Su Wei, it held absolute disgust. So this is the pathetic life he chose, playing house with a mute girl in a dump like this. He instantly hid Su Wei behind him. If she had things to say, she better spit it out. She casually grabbed a wooden chair, sitting down. Zaiyou, you are still so painfully naive. She actually dug up some incredibly interesting details regarding his Sweet wife's hidden past. Su Wei suddenly grabbed onto his arm, squeezing hard. Liu Xingsu slowly opened her expensive designer bag, pulling out an old, yellowed photo, and slid it across the table. We need to brace ourselves for this reveal. A photo showing a young couple. The man's eyes held a shocking resemblance to Su Wei. The woman was holding a tiny newborn. His grandmother never actually told him the truth, did she? She stared right at Su Wei, a chilling smile forming. Your parents didn't die from some random illness. It was a fatal car crash, and the guy driving the car that violently killed them was Jiang Zaiyou's own father, a drunk driver. No less, the room went ice cold. A massive ringing exploded in his head. He could barely even stand up. Su Wei just stared at the picture, her face completely drained, pale as a sheet of paper. Shocking, right? Liu Xingsu stood up, looking down at both of them with an absolutely arrogant smirk. Jiang Zaiyou, your dad murdered her parents, and now you play the devoted boyfriend trying to marry her. How ironic. Shut up, Zaiyou roared, but his voice shook violently. Liu Xingsu just leaned right into Su Wei's ear, whispering softly, little sister, take a wild guess. Is he treating you this well purely out of guilt? And with that massive truth bomb, she just walked away like a ghost, leaving behind this absolute, deathly silence. Su Wei stood completely frozen, like her very soul had been ripped right out. He tried to touch her, but she dodged, instantly pulling back, her eyes completely empty and alien. Su Wei, listen to me, I didn't, but suddenly she shoved him hard and sprinted upstairs. Slam, that attic door locked shut. Zaiyou chased right after her, desperately pounding on the door, but got zero response back. Then from the tiny gap underneath, a ripped piece of paper slid out, just a few scribbled words, let me be alone. That night, he waited outside her door until dawn. There was zero sound inside, but he knew she hadn't slept at all. The very next day, Su Wei didn't come downstairs to open the shop. He brought up some hot porridge and found the door still locked tight. Day 3, day 4, it was the exact same, locked inside, totally refusing food and water. Listen, the truth bomb Liu Xingsu had dropped. It completely broke the fragile little world they had just built together. During those brutal days, she locked herself away. Our guy was like a trapped, desperate animal, pacing endlessly around the cramped shop. Flour bags were just thrown all across the floor. Stale, burnt cookies still sat rotting on the baking sheets. The heavy air was thick with this suffocating smell of pure despair. So many times he wanted to run upstairs and completely smash that flimsy door to pieces, but every time he saw her messy handwriting slide under the gap, the words "leave me alone" becoming more and more frantic, his raised hand would drop. He was completely terrified that pushing her would be the final straw that broke her completely. This suffocating sense of powerlessness, trust me, it cut way deeper than his own family's ruin years ago. Back then, at least he could get angry. He could scream at the world, grab his bags, and leave, but now he did not even have the right to feel angry. The blood of the actual killer literally ran in his veins. Liu Xingsu found his absolute weakest spot and shattered it instantly. Then late night on day 5, a weak, muffled groan, like a dying animal, came from the attic, followed by the awful thud of something heavy hitting the floorboards. His heart just stopped. He did not care about anything else anymore. He grabbed the spare key and kicked the door wide open. Su Wei had collapsed beside the bed, her face pale as ash, her lips totally cracked and dry. Beside her was a spilled glass of water. She clearly tried to get a drink, but lacked even that tiny bit of strength to reach it. Days without food or water had pushed her weak body to its absolute limit. Zaiyou rushed over, scooping her right up. She felt as light as a feather, like she might just fade away into nothing. Su Wei, he patted her freezing cheek, his voice completely shaking and broken. Slowly, her heavy eyelids fluttered wide open. Her empty, unfocused gaze rested right on his face. In that single, terrifying moment, he was so incredibly scared she would just slip away forever, terrified he would never get the chance to fix things. Like an absolute madman, he dashed downstairs, warming up porridge, and he got some warm water ready. Slowly, very carefully, he pried her pale lips open and fed her with a tiny spoon. She swallowed mechanically, her eyes completely hazy, just totally blank. Half a bowl later, he grabbed hot water and a fresh towel, gently wiping her exhausted face, warming up her freezing hands and feet. The whole time she just sat there like a lifeless doll, a single stray tear slipping down her cheek was the only proof she was alive. He softly tucked her under the heavy blanket, lying right beside her, holding her tight over the thick covers. He didn't dare sleep, terrified she might literally vanish the second he closed his eyes. Su Wei, our guy, whispers hoarsely into her ear, "I know you hear me. Hate me, blame me all you want, but you absolutely cannot die right now, because if you die, what am I supposed to do?" He confesses he's done some seriously messed up things in his 20s, but he never actually wanted to hurt a single person. He swears he'll carry his father's sins if killing him makes her feel even slightly better. He'd hand her the knife himself. He grabs her hand, pressing it hard against his own chest, but she couldn't use this twisted method to punish him or punish herself. Her grandmother worked to the bone raising her. Definitely not for this tragic ending. "Remember that croissant you gave me?" he asks. It was the most bitter yet sweetest thing he ever tasted. Bitter from his rock-bottom downfall, but sweet because of her. This shop is called Twilight, and she's the only one who lit it up. If she dies, the light dies with her. His world would plunge into absolute darkness forever. "You and I know that desperate feeling," he kept talking until his throat felt like dry sandpaper. Su Wei's body remained completely ice cold in his arms, but thankfully her breathing finally steadied out. Bright and early the very next morning, Zaiyou was about to get up and cook. Suddenly, a freezing hand weakly grabbed his arm. He jolted, whipping his head around to meet her gaze, though her eyes were still red. A tiny glimmer of light had finally sparked deep inside them. She looked right at him, lips moving just barely. Zero sound came out, but the shape of her mouth silently mouthed the word water. He totally scrambled to pour a glass, his hands shaking so violently he spilled half. After he helped her drink a little, she gently leaned right against his chest, closing her eyes. Another single tear rolled down her pale cheek, but this time, not dead despair, just a really deep, utterly exhausted vulnerability. She was actually letting him be close again. This insane realization made him cry tears of pure joy. "Stick with me here." The next few days were agonizingly slow for recovery. Su Wei's physical body gradually healed up, but that massive wound in her heart nowhere near mended. She became unusually quiet, somehow even more silent than she was before. She still helped him run the shop, but her movements were super sluggish, often just staring completely blankly at the sink. At night, she'd suddenly wake up with a jolt. Drenched in cold sweat, he would hold her tight, feeling her pure terror. She even stopped using her notebook to communicate with him. She relied on only simple little gestures for anything she needed. Zaiyou knew that toxic thorn was still buried deep inside her heart. Those cruel words were literal poison, slowly gnawing away at her trust and their entire foundation. She kept wondering, did his help, his proposal, his love all stem from guilt? Subconsciously, she started avoiding his touch entirely. If he put food right in her bowl, she'd completely freeze up before finally accepting it. At night, if he tried holding her close, she would stiffly turn away. We're watching a heartbreaking, deliberate distancing. The silence, way more suffocating than any fight. He knew she was really struggling, rethinking their entire marriage. But the real breakthrough, it finally hit one afternoon. An sweet elderly lady who always bought whole wheat bread shakily handed them a thick envelope. What was inside? Fancy specialty cookies her son shipped over from abroad. She insisted on thanking the couple for taking care of her recently. Su Wei just couldn't refuse and politely accepted. The sweet old lady smiled. "You and your husband are both such good people, honest business folks like you are truly rare right now. You must live a very happy life together." She held Su Wei's hand, softly whispering her heartfelt blessings. After the woman left, Su Wei just stood behind that shop counter, quietly holding That cookie tin for so long, warm sunlight from the window fell perfectly across her. Lowered eyelashes, he just watched from a distance, totally terrified to even disturb her. Then out of nowhere, she turned around, walked straight over, handed him the cookies and pointed right at a dusty box in the corner. Inside, a few old photos from their wedding plus her most precious treasure, that absolutely tattered old notebook. The exact same one where he wrote out her insurance policy years ago. He was completely caught off guard, but then it clicked. He walked over, dug the old notebook out from the very bottom, wiped the dust off the cover, and gently handed it right back. She grabbed it, flipped straight to the very last blank page, grabbed a pen and started writing. Her hand trembled a little, but her strokes were heavy, deliberate, and packed with emotion. I dreamt of my parents. They were smiling down at me in this incredibly bright place. I don't think they blame you. She paused right there for a long, heavy moment. Black ink bled into a tiny dot on the paper. Then she took a breath and kept writing. I was just wondering if you only treated me well out of pure guilt, then why, when I stole that bread, was there only raw impatience in your eyes and absolutely zero pity? You only made that call because you wanted to fix a nuisance. So why, when I finally agreed to marry you, did you completely space out while your ears turned bright, burning red? She looked up at him, her tear-filled eyes locking onto his. Inside that gaze, intense, raw confusion plus a tiny sliver of hope. She wasn't interrogating him, not at all. She just desperately needed an answer, one that could pull her straight out of this absolute nightmare. He looked back, his heart feeling exactly like it was being gently squeezed. Stick with me, because here is where it gets emotional. He took the pen, writing stroke by agonizingly slow stroke, right below her words. Su Wei, I am not a good person. When I helped you, I didn't think too much about it. Maybe I was just in a weirdly good mood. Maybe I just didn't want any extra trouble. When I married you, I honestly didn't even know if it was actual love. I just felt truly peaceful and never, ever exhausted around you. But right now, I am completely clear. I absolutely cannot bear to see you cry. I can't stand watching you get bullied when you are in pain. I honestly wish I could suffer in your place instead. This has absolutely nothing to do with who my father is. It only matters that you are Su Wei, the only woman I truly love. If we really must talk about guilt, the only thing I ever feel guilty about is not meeting you much sooner. Letting you suffer so terribly and just not protecting you well enough. I absolutely hate making you suffer all over again because of my own stupid uselessness. He handed the pen back. She read his heartfelt words, crying even harder now, but the corners of her mouth finally, slowly twitched upwards. It was a smile way uglier than crying, but trust me, it was the absolute most beautiful expression he had ever witnessed in his life. She took the pen, and right behind the words he wrote, she forcefully added 3 very simple words: I believe you. Then she put down the pen and proactively reached out to gently hold his fingers. Her own fingers were still just as her hands were freezing, but that firm grip, it completely washed away all the gloom in his heart. And you and I are going to love this. That night, she didn't turn her back to sleep. She curled right up into his arms, just like a small bird finding its safe nest. Her breathing stayed completely soft. He just listened to that quiet rhythm, realizing she was his absolute greatest treasure in the world. They both knew the trauma scar was definitely still there. It might literally last forever, but at least they had finally started learning to live with it, plus sharing that totally crushing emotional weight together. It actually made their bond so much stronger. Just a few short days later, they made the massive choice to leave the city. This wasn't just about escaping hidden dangers. Mostly, they just desperately needed a huge change of scenery, a place completely free from bad memories to start fresh. And Su Wei, she agreed without blinking. To her, home was simply wherever he was. They sold the old Twilight Bakery, packed up their bags, and headed straight south. Hearing they were finally leaving, the sweet neighbors all gathered around, stuffing their arms completely full of local treats. Girl, if you ever get treated poorly out there, you just come right back here. Grandma will get justice for you. an old lady cried, wiping away tears. While gripping Su Wei's hand tight, with red eyes, Su Wei nodded, pressing a bag of freshly baked cookies into the woman's hands, right before leaving. While they were boxing up the very last few things, Su Wei dug out a tin box from beneath the heavy wardrobe. Inside sat her grandmother's old keepsakes, that vintage photo and the homemade insurance policy he wrote her years ago. The paper had turned yellow, but his handwriting stayed perfectly clear. If I ever fall on completely hard times and end up begging on the streets, just remember to give me a simple bowl of rice. She read it and suddenly smiled. Then she started crying all over again. Grabbing a pen, she earnestly scribbled a few words on the back, handing it straight to him. In this life, my bowl of rice will always be split perfectly in half with you. His eyes burned, pulling her into a tight hug. Deal, a promise is a promise. As their train rolled out, the city holding so much trauma and warmth slowly faded away past the window. Su Wei actually fell fast asleep, leaning on his shoulder, fingers still gripping his shirt so tight. The bright sun streamed through the glass onto her face, totally serene and peaceful. He kissed the top of her head, gently closing his eyes. Honestly, whatever the future held, he had absolutely no idea, but you and I know, with her by his side, anywhere was home. Eventually, our sweet duo settled down in this cute coastal city. They used the cash from selling the old place to open a tiny dessert cafe, officially naming it Sunset Hours. Su Wei handled all the baking. He greeted the happy customers. Life was simple, sure, but incredibly peaceful. She slowly stepped right out of those dark shadows. Genuine smiles appeared on her face again. Occasionally, in the dead of night, she would still wake up, panicked from a nightmare, but he'd immediately hold her close, gently patting her back until she dozed off again. One beautiful evening, a whole year later, they were strolling hand in hand down the beach. The sunset painted everything absolutely golden, and the tide was slowly rising. Su Wei suddenly stopped, pointing right down at something sparkling in the sand. He picked it up, a gorgeous piece of sea glass, its edges perfectly smoothed by ocean waves. Under the sunset, it reflected a warm glow. She took the sea glass, held it to the sun, then placed it right in his palm. Perfect ending, right? She closed his hands right over it, silently gesturing for him to guard it carefully. A token of our love, he teased. She nodded so fast, her eyes practically sparkling with joy. One hot afternoon, you and I could clearly tell the shop was totally dead. Su Wei stood at the counter, getting tomorrow's sponge cakes ready to go. Our guy was sitting quietly behind the cash register, crunching the daily numbers. A sudden soft gasp made him look up. Su Wei's hand, still holding the whisk, just completely froze in place. She stared totally blankly out the window. Right outside, a young dad strolled by with his little girl riding on his back. That little girl's cheerful laughter pierced right through the thick shop glass. He carefully put down his ledger and walked straight over. She didn't even look his way, her eyes just tracking that father and daughter until they completely vanished around the street corner. Her side profile, soaking in that warm afternoon sun, looked painfully pale right then. Her eyes held an emotion he could barely put into words, just a pure mix of longing and sorrow. He touched her arm gently. Snapping out of it, she forced a tight smile and shook her head, signing that she was totally fine. Then she looked down, aggressively stirring the cake batter, acting exactly as if trying to physically chase those thoughts away. He knew she deeply missed her parents, the happy childhood she should have spent with family by her side, filled with joy and bright laughter. That empty void was a painful regret nothing could ever fill. Liu Qingsu was basically a poisoned thorn. Even on the absolute brightest, sunniest days, it would just completely unexpectedly stab right through her fragile heart. Later that night, after locking up, they sat on the back steps, enjoying the cool sea breeze. The calming sound of waves gently washing against the sandy shore matched the distant, flickering lights of passing fishing boats. Su Wei quietly leaned her head right against his shoulder, looking incredibly peaceful. He gently held her hand. Her skin felt a little cold. Su Wei, he finally broke the silence. Should we go visit them? Her whole body went completely stiff. She looked up at him. Clear confusion in her eyes. Visit your parents. He chose his words really carefully. I know where. The cemetery is. It was inside the old documents Liu Qingsu left behind. Let's go talk to them. Tell them you are living happily now, and let me apologize for my father. Those last few words were absolutely agonizing for him to say, but he knew he really had to. Now watch this closely. Su Wei sat completely stunned. Tears quickly welled up in her eyes, but she fought so hard to keep them from falling. She looked at him, her emotional eyes showing real struggle and fear, but eventually it solidified into a firm decision. She bravely nodded. Firmly, they picked a beautifully clear morning, closed the bakery, and brought a custom bouquet of fresh flowers. Su Wei beautifully arranged herself, white daisies and blue lisianthus. They headed out to the quiet cemetery on the outskirts of the city. This graveyard was incredibly quiet, tucked against a green mountain and facing the sea. It was a deeply peaceful final resting place. Following the directions, they quickly found the joint stone tombstone. It was incredibly simple. The old photos of Su Wei's parents on it had completely faded. Su Wei slowly walked to the grave, bent down, and gently placed the fresh flowers. Reaching out, she used her fingertips to gently wipe away all the thick dust and dead leaves from the tombstone. Her movements were so incredibly tender, as if touching a fragile dream. She didn't even cry, just wiped the stone in total silence. The golden sunlight hit her focused profile, creating an almost sacred, beautiful stillness. Our guy stood a short distance behind her, not daring to interrupt. After spending a really long time sitting with her beloved parents, she finally stood up and waved him over. He walked up and stood right beside her in front of the quiet grave. The sea breeze fluttered their hair and clothes. Su Wei stared at the tombstone, then at Zaiyou. Slowly, she raised her trembling hands and began to speak in sign language. Her movements were deliberate, almost as if she was pouring her entire soul into every gesture. Mom, Dad, this is Jiang Zaiyou, my husband. She paused, took a shaky breath, and kept signing. He treats me so well. We even run our own little shop now, called Sunset Hours. Life is so peaceful. I am truly content. We finally know the truth about the past. Her signs grew heavier, but they stayed completely resolute. It was a terrible accident. I know it was not Zaiyou's fault. He is nothing like his father. She looked over at Zaiyou. Silent tears finally traced down her face, but a gentle smile rested on her lips, turning back to the cold stone. So, Mom, Dad, please do not blame him. Do not worry about me. I am so happy now. Watching her introduce him to her parents like this, showing them her genuine happiness, Zaiyou choked up completely. His eyes burned fiercely. He reached out, firmly grasping the very hand she signed with. Then he bowed deeply toward the tombstone. Straightening up, he stared at their faded photos. He finally spoke, his voice heavy and solemn. Uncle, Auntie, I am Jiang Zaiyou. I am sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing Su Wei into this world. Rest assured, while I breathe, I will never let her suffer again. I will use absolutely everything I have to protect her. He spoke slowly, every single word bleeding straight from his heart. He knew mere words were weightless, but right now, it was the only thing he could offer. The visitation ended. Hand in hand, they walked down the quiet cemetery hillside. Now watch this carefully. On the way back, Su Wei looked completely relieved, like she finally dropped a massive burden she had carried for years. She excitedly pointed out beautiful wildflowers by the road, signing to Zaiyou that they could definitely try using those stems and leaves for natural food coloring. From that day forward, Zaiyou noticed a beautiful shift in Su Wei, that dark lingering haze in her eyes. It had faded completely. Her smile grew so much brighter, totally relaxed. She started eagerly planning their future together, figuring out exactly what flowers to plant right in front of the shop, or maybe renting the place next door to expand once they saved up enough money. She even signed that maybe, somewhere down the line, they could adopt a child. You and I both know that cemetery visit was not just to comfort her parents. It Was their official goodbye to a painful past they could never change. The tragedy happened, but they could absolutely choose how to face tomorrow. On that beautiful late afternoon, they poured away those years of bitter memories, choosing instead to completely fill the remaining time with deep understanding, true tolerance, and the pure sweetness of the sugar Su-Wei crafted with her own hands, slowly and earnestly savoring the beautiful flavor of the rest of their lives. One random day, after closing up shop, they sat on the beach, watching the sunset. The golden afterglow dyed the ocean waves into a brilliantly stunning ribbon. Su-Wei rested her head softly on his shoulder. Then she suddenly traced a few words right onto his palm, not sign language, just writing with her finger. He focused hard on the invisible letters. Sunset hours. Honestly, Zaiyou felt his heart swell with pure joy. He lowered his head, gently kissing her hair. Absolutely, incredibly perfect.